The cafe buzzed with the low hum of conversation, the clinking of ceramic mugs, the rhythmic hiss of the espresso machine. Rain lashed against the large window panes, blurring the city lights into hazy halos. I was tucked into a corner booth, lost in the pages of a worn copy of Rilke, when I saw him. Across the room, by the window, his back to me, but the silhouette, unmistakably him. It had been 10 years. 10 years since the bitter sting of goodbye. 10 years since the echoes of our passionate arguments faded into the quiet hum of separate lives. 10 years since Liam. My breath hitched. A wave of nausea mixed with a strange, exhilarating thrill washed over me. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. He hadn't changed much, I realized, as he turned slightly, his profile catching the dim light. The same sharp jawline, the same unruly, dark hair that always seemed to fall perfectly into place, the same intensity in his eyes that I remembered so vividly. It was like looking at a ghost, a phantom from a past life, suddenly resurrected in a bustling coffee shop. My initial reaction was pure shock, a paralysis of the senses. Then came the flood. A torrent of memories, both bittersweet and sharp, flooded my consciousness. The laughter, the stolen kisses under the moonlight, the fierce arguments that felt as intimate as the moments of tenderness, the shared dreams, the crushing disappointments, the final, agonizing farewell. 10 years since Liam. My breath hitched. A wave of nausea mixed with a strange, exhilarating thrill washed over me. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. He hadn't changed much, I realized, as he turned slightly, his profile catching the dim light. The same sharp jawline, the same unruly dark hair that always seemed to fall perfectly into place, the same intensity in his eyes that I remembered so vividly. It was like looking at a ghost, a phantom from a past life, suddenly resurrected in a bustling coffee shop. My initial reaction was pure shock, a paralysis of the senses. Then came the flood. A torrent of memories, both bittersweet and sharp, flooded my consciousness. The laughter, the stolen kisses under the moonlight, the fierce arguments that felt as intimate as the moments of tenderness, the shared dreams, the crushing disappointments, the final, agonizing farewell. He was talking to someone, a woman with fiery red hair and a dazzling smile. They seemed comfortable together. A pang of something, jealousy, disappointment, pierced through the initial shock. But then another wave, this time of curiosity, washed over me. What was he doing here? Was he happy? Had he moved on completely? I watched him for a long time, a silent observer in my own little drama. My coffee grew cold, the pages of my book lay forgotten. My mind raced, spinning a whirlwind of possibilities, of what-ifs and could-bes. Was this a cosmic joke, a cruel twist of fate? Or was it something more? A second chance, perhaps? The woman with the red hair laughed, a sound as bright and cheerful as the clinking glasses around us. Liam smiled, a smile that reached his eyes, a smile that stirred something deep within me, a forgotten warmth that sent shivers down my spine. It was a smile that held a hint of melancholy, a hint of regret. I felt a strange pull, a magnetic force drawing me towards him, an irresistible urge to cross the room, to speak to him, to ask him, what? I didn't know. I only knew that I needed to understand what this unexpected encounter meant, to understand the ripples of the past that had suddenly and violently crashed into my present. My rational mind screamed warnings. This was dangerous territory, fraught with potential heartbreak. The memories were still too raw, the wounds still too fresh. But another part of me, a more reckless, impulsive part, yearned to bridge the gap, to explore the possibilities, however risky. As he rose to leave, the woman's hand briefly resting on his arm, a decision solidified within me.
I couldn't just sit here, paralyzed by indecision. I had to know. I had to face the ghost of my past and decide whether this was a second chance or a karmic trap waiting to ensnare me once more. The rain outside intensified, mirroring the storm brewing within my soul.
I gathered my belongings, my heart pounding a rhythm of anticipation and fear, and walked towards him. This was it, the moment of truth. The scent of rain on hot asphalt, that was always his smell. A sharp, almost metallic tang mixed with the sweet, earthy aroma of petrichor. It hit me unexpectedly, a rogue wave of memory pulling me under. He'd always liked rainy days, finding a strange comfort in the gray skies and the drumming rhythm against the window pane. Funny how a scent could unlock a whole flood of emotions years after the fact. My fingers traced the rim of my chipped mug, the warmth, a meager comfort against the chill that settled deep in my bones. It wasn't just the rain, it was the music playing softly on the radio, a song we danced to, clumsy and laughing, in some forgotten bar. A song that felt both intimately personal and achingly distant now. Liam. The name echoed in the quiet space, a whisper of what once was. He'd contacted me after all these years, a simple message, a casual invitation to coffee. Just catching up, he'd written. Just catching up? After 5 years of silence, 5 years of carefully constructed new life, 5 years of believing I'd moved on? His message felt like a carefully placed stone skipping across the still surface of my carefully curated calm. My reflection stared back from the window, a stranger in the fading light. I saw the ghost of the girl I was then, younger, more hopeful, a little naive. The girl who'd fallen hard, blindly, into a relationship that consumed her. A relationship that ultimately left her feeling broken, empty, adrift. What went wrong? The question echoed, a haunting refrain in the chambers of my mind. Was it his ambition, his relentless drive that pushed everything else aside? Or was it my own insecurity, my clinging need for validation that suffocated the life out of our connection? Maybe it was a perfect storm of incompatibility, a clash of personalities and life goals that were fundamentally irreconcilable. The memories came in waves, vibrant, painful, bittersweet. The laughter, the passionate nights, the quiet moments of shared intimacy. But the memories also brought the arguments, the silences, the growing distance that ultimately drove a wedge between us. The unspoken resentments, the unmet needs, the festering wounds that never healed. I remember the night he left, the finality in his eyes, the hollow ache in my chest. Now, years later, he was back. A second chance? A cosmic joke? Or perhaps something in between? The thought sent a shiver down my spine, a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Part of me craved the comfort of familiarity, the thrill of rekindling something that once burned so brightly. Another part, wiser now, more guarded, whispered warnings of potential heartbreak. I knew myself better now. I'd spent years working on my own emotional baggage, on understanding my patterns and my needs. I'd learned to love myself, flaws and all, to set healthy boundaries, to prioritize my own well-being. But had he changed too? Had he learned from the mistakes we'd made? Or was this just a fleeting moment of nostalgia, a brief flicker before the darkness returns? The rain continued its relentless rhythm, a soundtrack to my internal struggle. The question wasn't whether I missed him. I did, in a way, the way you miss a part of your past, a chapter that shaped you.
The real question was whether this was a genuine opportunity for growth, a chance to build something stronger, more sustainable, or just a dangerous detour back to a familiar, painful landscape. The answer, I knew, lay not in the memories, but in the choices I was prepared to make. The choice to embrace the possibility or to protect myself from the potential pain. The coffee grew cold in my hands, mirroring the uncertainty that churned within me. A decision loomed, heavy and inescapable. The weight of the past, the promise of the future, all intertwined in a delicate dance of hope and fear. This was more than just a coffee date. It was a reckoning, a confrontation with the ghost of who I used to be and the woman I am now. And as the rain softened to a gentle drizzle, a strange calm settled over me. I wasn't afraid of the answers anymore. I was ready to face them, whatever they may be. The cafe buzzed with the low hum of conversation, the clinking of ceramic mugs, the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of laptop keys. Sarah stirred her latte, the foam swirling like a miniature galaxy, mirroring the turbulent cosmos in her own heart. Across the small round table sat Liam, his eyes the same intense, captivating blue she remembered, holding hers. It had been 3 years since their last goodbye, a messy, tear-soaked farewell that left a crater in her soul. Now, here they were, a tentative truce declared, an accidental encounter blossoming into, well, she wasn't sure what. The initial conversations were easy, a comfortable slip back into the familiar rhythm of their old banter. Shared memories surfaced like playful dolphins, breaches of laughter punctuating the air. He talked about his work, his travels, the lessons he'd learned since their split. She listened, captivated, a strange mixture of longing and trepidation swirling within her. There was a magnetism between them, undeniable, a gravitational pull that defied logic and reason. It felt right, almost too right. But then the cracks began to appear. A subtle shift in his demeanor, a flicker of irritation in his eyes when she mentioned her current work. He'd subtly criticize her choices, his tone laced with a familiar, patronizing undercurrent she thought she'd left behind. It was like watching a beautiful painting slowly being defaced, the vibrant colors fading into muted shades of disappointment. One evening, over a bottle of wine, the carefully constructed facade crumbled. A seemingly innocuous comment about her career triggered a cascade of resentment. He accused her of being too ambitious, of prioritizing her work over their relationship. The same tired accusations that had fueled their final fight. The familiar sting of his words pierced her heart, bringing back a wave of painful memories. This wasn't just a second chance. This was a replay of the same old destructive drama. Sarah found herself defending her choices, her voice rising in a desperate attempt to be heard, to be understood. He countered with his own grievances, his words sharp and accusatory. The wine, once a lubricant for conversation, now fueled the fire of their argument. Suddenly, the cafe's cheerful ambiance felt suffocating, the happy chatter a mocking soundtrack to their escalating conflict. The fight ended in tears, Sarah's heart heavy with a crushing sense of déjà vu. She had hoped for a second chance, a chance to rewrite their story, to reconcile the past and build a healthier future. But the old wounds were still raw, the old patterns stubbornly entrenched. The issues that had driven them apart 3 years ago, his insecurity, her ambition, their clashing communication styles, hadn't vanished. They were simply buried under a thin layer of nostalgic charm. Liam, caught in the emotional crossfire, seemed genuinely remorseful. He apologized for his harsh words, for reopening old wounds. He claimed to have changed, to have learned from his mistakes. But Sarah wasn't convinced. His apologies felt hollow, a surface-level attempt to smooth over deep-seated issues. The weight of their shared history pressed down on her, suffocating the fragile hope she dared to nurture. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that this wasn't a second chance. It was a karmic trap, a repetition of the same painful cycle, a chance to relive the same mistakes, to re-experience the same heartache. This wasn't about fixing the past, it was about acknowledging the past and moving forward. The following days were filled with introspection. Sarah spent hours journaling, sorting through the tangled emotions, the fragmented memories. She realized that her initial attraction to Liam had been fueled by nostalgia, by a romanticized version of their past. She'd been seduced by the comforting familiarity, by the illusion of a second chance. But the reality was far more complex, far more painful. This wasn't about forgiving Liam, it was about forgiving herself for falling into the same trap. It was about recognizing the patterns of her own behavior, the choices she made that contributed to the cycle of conflict. It was about prioritizing her own well-being, her own happiness, above the allure of a potentially destructive relationship. She made the difficult decision to end things with Liam, a decision that felt both liberating and heartbreaking. It was a painful but necessary step towards healing, towards building a future free from the shadow of the past. The cafe where they had rekindled their connection became a symbol of both hope and heartbreak, a reminder that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. The universe, she realized, wasn't offering her a second chance. It was offering her a lesson, and she was finally ready to learn it. The scent of rain on dry earth, that familiar earthy aroma, mirrored the turmoil brewing inside Clara. She stared out the window, the city lights blurring into a hazy tapestry, much like the tangled threads of her emotions. Liam. The name itself vibrated with a bittersweet resonance, a ghost of laughter and whispered secrets mingling with the sting of past hurts. He was back. After 5 years of silence, a simple email, a casual inquiry about her well-being had shattered the carefully constructed walls of her solitude. This wasn't some impulsive, drunken text. This was Liam, measured, thoughtful Liam, reaching out. He changed, he claimed, matured, understood the mistakes of their past. The words hung in the air between them, unseen, yet heavy with unspoken promises and the weight of unresolved conflict. Was this a second chance? A cosmic do-over? Or was it a karmic trap, a siren song luring her back to the rocks? The memories flooded back, a relentless tide. The passionate beginnings, the dizzying highs, the crushing lows. The arguments, the betrayals, the agonizing breakup, all sharp, vivid shards piercing the rosy glow of nostalgia. She remembered the promises broken, the trust shattered, the dreams left to wither in the aftermath. Yet, amidst the wreckage, a stubborn ember of affection flickered, refusing to be extinguished.
Logic screamed at her to run, to protect herself from the potential pain. Her friends, bless their pragmatic hearts, had offered a chorus of warnings. He's history, Clara. Move on. Don't let him manipulate you again. Their words were laced with concern, born of witnessing the devastation Liam had inflicted years ago. And yet, she found herself questioning their judgment, questioning her own ability to make the right decision. This wasn't just about Liam, it was about her. About the choices she'd made, the mistakes she learned from, the person she'd become in his absence. She'd spent the last 5 years meticulously piecing herself back together, building a life independent of his influence, a life filled with purpose and self-love. To return to him would be to risk unraveling all that hard-won progress. But the alternative, a life without Liam, felt strangely incomplete. A part of her, a deeply buried part, yearned for the connection they once shared, the easy intimacy, the unspoken understanding that had felt so effortless back then. Was that yearning a sign of lingering attachment, a refusal to let go of the past, or was it something more profound, a whisper of destiny urging her to confront her past and potentially forge a new future? The decision wasn't easy. It wasn't about choosing between right and wrong, but about choosing between two paths, both fraught with uncertainty and potential consequences. It was about accepting the risk of heartbreak, the possibility of failure, and the inevitability of making a choice that might not be perfect. But that, she realized, was the essence of life. Navigating the messy, unpredictable currents of existence,
embracing the uncertainty and accepting responsibility for the ripples her actions would create. This wasn't a matter of fate or destiny, but of conscious choice. The stars weren't dictating her future. They were simply offering guidance, illuminating the path ahead. The power to decide, to shape her own narrative, rested solely within her. And in that realization, a profound sense of empowerment surged through her. She wasn't a victim of circumstance. She was the architect of her own happiness. The choice was hers, and whatever the outcome, she would face it with courage, with clarity, and with the unwavering conviction that she would learn and grow from the experience, regardless of whether Liam was part of her future or simply a significant chapter in her past. The rain outside had stopped. A sliver of sun peeked through the clouds, a subtle promise of a new dawn, a fresh beginning. The air crackled with unspoken words as Liam and Mark stood on opposite sides of the room, their gazes locked. Sarah, caught in the middle, felt the weight of her decision pressing down. She'd spent weeks wrestling with her feelings, the pull of the familiar comfort of Liam's embrace, battling against the electrifying spark she still felt for Mark. This wasn't just about choosing a lover. It was about choosing a life, a path. Ultimately, she chose Liam. His steady presence, his unwavering support, these were the anchors she needed after the turbulent seas of her past relationship with Mark. The initial joy, however, was short-lived. Old patterns resurfaced. Liam's insecurities mirrored her own, creating a cycle of resentment and misunderstanding. The relationship, while less explosive than her time with Mark, felt suffocating. It was a lesson in self-awareness, a painful realization that choosing familiarity hadn't solved the underlying issues she needed to address. In the end, Sarah didn't find happiness in a second-chance romance.
Instead, she found something far more valuable, a deep understanding of her own emotional needs. The karmic lesson wasn't about finding the right man. It was about understanding herself enough to choose the right path, a path of self-love and personal growth, regardless of romantic entanglements. This time, the heartbreak was different. It was a catalyst, not a dead end.